Welcome to the Rise Inside podcast, hosted by Justin Starbird and powered by Rise Robotics. Listen as host Justin talks to experts from the Rise team about topics relating to mechanical engineering, industrial design, commercialization, and innovation. True collaborations work when ideas are integrated at inception to solve significant problems. Rise Inside brings together how the team continues to work with great folks to commercialize ideas. You're listening to the Rise Inside podcast. Here's your host, Justin Starbird.
Welcome back to Rise Inside. My name is Justin Starbird. Today, I get the fortunate opportunity to welcome back Toomas Sepp, one of the co-founders at Rise, Vice President of Engineering, a new friend, Nolan Hobart, Mechanical Engineer at Rise, and GP Bassi, the Executive Vice President of 3DEXPERIENCE Works at Dassault Systems. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Justin. Good day, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Well, happy to be back.
Yeah. And Nolan, man, this is your first time on too. This is exciting.
Yeah, I know we've been talking about it a little bit, but finally happening.
No kidding. Well, GP, I'll get started with you. First of all, great to meet you. Wonderful to have had the opportunity to work with you. You've done a little project about SolidWorks and the Boston startup scene. So that was really cool of you to do previously, but great to meet you in person.
Same here, Justin. It's fun. I know Rise. We've been together in a few occasions. We have a big event once a year. It's called the 3DEXPERIENCE World, where we feature also very hot and cool startups. We do some sort of Shark Tank type of show, and they did show up there, and they performed very well. And I think it was a good blessing for their progress. I visited them at the beginning of this year to do a recording part of our big 3DEXPERIENCE World event as well. And it was good to show, the progress that they made. Amazing. Congratulations. It's their technology is pure genius, is simple, very, very effective, very efficient, very environment friendly. This is the type of customers we love to work with.
That's great to hear. Well, tell us a little bit about SolidWorks and 3DEXPERIENCE and, how that fits in with Dassault Systems.
Yeah, SolidWorks is a company that was founded 25 years ago in Massachusetts, in the US, with the dream to democratize the access to 3D modeling technology. At the time, in the 90s, 3D modeling, 3D technology, using the computer for design was something almost only used in automotive and aerospace. Was complex, very, very costly. And then there was the revolution of the personal computer, and so it was one of the first to create a computer-aided design software on personal computers. And since then, the rest is history. Right now, we have 45% of market share of computer-aided design seats, but we have been still close to our DNA, to our culture, to our values, founding values, which is stay very close to our clients, listen to their needs, continuously improve the technology. We are obsessed about the user experience, so these things have not changed. What is changing is, however, the technologies that today are needed for computer-aided design to create products, amazing products like the one that created at Rise Robotics. So we need to evolve, and that's the reason why there is this new organization called 3DEXPERIENCE Works, which I work for. I lead this organization, and the goal is to expand from design to all the disciplines to make a great product happen, which is manufacturing, simulation, data management, collaboration, and even sales and marketing. So we have software that helps companies like Rise to sell and showcase their products digitally and so on.
That's wonderful. And, we've been certainly fortunate to see how Rise uses it. We're going to get to that in just a second. But before we talk about that, what are some of you say, a couple of different things there in terms of companies that use the platform. How do you, what companies do, or, what industries are really really benefit from the platform?
Yeah, it's interesting because our technology is used in 12 industries. We are present in 12 manufacturing industries, from industrial equipment to aerospace, automotive, consumer goods, and so on. So our technology, the 3DEXPERIENCE was technology, is actually for everybody. We serve Fortune 500 all the way into startups and also individuals, students and makers. We have a version for everybody.
That's great. Toomas, I'll ask you this question because you've been part of the Rise team since its inception almost. How do you guys use SolidWorks? How were you first introduced?
So I guess I can talk personally. I've been a SolidWorks user for approximately 15 years now. I was introduced to it as an individual user in college, going through mechanical engineering classes. It was actually a mechanical engineering design class, a robotics competition class that I was first introduced to it. Used it kind of very, as a beginner, I would say, doing, simple extrudes and hole wizard, hole patterns and the such, to kind of, visualize what I wanted to build. Kind of come a long way since then, obviously. My next kind of big experience with the platform was and one of my internships, where I was, first introduced to how does a company use this tool, using, I think it was PDM Enterprise at the time. And, how do you check in and out files, such that there's revision control and, a workflow path with engineering change orders, such that the whole team can really be on the same page at all times, knowing what the design is and what's under change, what's locked down, and what's been approved and out in manufacturing. And then from there, in the early days of Rise Robotics, took that kind of base knowledge and actually had, there's very few points in a company's life where you actually want to consider changing any type of CAD platform. I'm happy to say that we started with SolidWorks right from the beginning, and have never had to really go through any painful processes of switching.
Right.
But we were using individual users for a long time in our history. We only had 2 or 3, less than a handful of engineers, mostly working on separate designs. So we were able to get by kind of using it as a more on an individual contributor basis. And that is until recently, where we've been using the PDM system for a few years now.
Sure. And that's probably Nolan, to how you got introduced to it. No?
Yeah, pretty similar. Definitely was introduced through school. And then, similar to Toomas, started out with like the basic extrudes and cuts and hole wizards and whatnot. I kind of got a little more into SolidWorks when I had a study abroad. I took a kind of advanced SolidWorks modeling course and got into some simulation and some more complex surface modeling, which has been a huge help here at Rise. We have a lot of, twisting and, different geometries that our belt is subject to. And so it's been useful skills to have and then further develop here. I know what just general surface commands and whatnot, and then really being able to understand how that's used in like a real application in a part that's going to be in a market ready product
Sure.
is like, kind of the next step up from that.
And how does the team use the platform today?
Definitely a sharing of information. We're all able to view kind of the same checked-in assembly on the SolidWorks PDM. It's hugely valuable for design reviews. So, we kind of just project the CAD up onto a screen. Other people can, drive, so to speak, or take control of the mouse and, zoom in on a specific point or a specific feature to really go into detail. You have anything else on that, Tomas?
Yeah, I mean, just to emphasize how collaboratively we do use it. We're a small team as a startup, but we do have above 10 SolidWorks users at this point. Largely, most of them working on a single design at this point in time, as we bring our first product to market. So you're talking about a single assembly that many different people can get into at the same time, often with different files checked out by each person at any given time, and then seamlessly once parts are checked back in, integrating back in. So it's just it's you can rest assured that the model is what it is, it's a seamless integration of changes across all the user base.
Sure.
And then personally, from from a company perspective too, in terms of being able to hold the data in like a secure way, it's very resilient to any one computer crashing or even the server going down, since it's kind of a distributed network of where all the information is stored, such that it's robust against losing anything.
Yeah. GP, is it like crazy to hear this? Like, I mean, this is what you set out when you guys got into this, right? 25 years ago.
I am delighted to hear that Toomas and Nolan, they are actually adopting the best practices, and 10 designers is not a small team, as a matter of fact. So you're right, coordinating. These guys are doing what is called simultaneous engineering. It's like concurrent engineering. And that's what the startups are, because they are fast and furious, and they cannot afford to lose data. And the intellectual property, they said it all. Intellectual property is the most important asset of a startup, right? So they need to have a secure environment that is resilient. They said, I'm listening with all my ears. And I'm taking notes, because you couldn't have said it better. This is exactly what we want to know. And the other thing is they probably said that they started adopting this in school. That's very important for our strategy. The connection with the education world is very, very important for us. And also the ease of use. At the end, our job is to make sure that users like Toomas and Nolan don't have to fight with the tool. We want to be transparent. We want them to just spend all the time that they spend into inventing new things, not fighting with the tools, to make sure that they can manufacture what is in their head. And this is our focus, as a matter of fact. We just want to be transparent and basically read the mind of the designer, make sure that whatever they're looking for is at their fingertip. We spend a disproportionate amount of time with the right mouse buttons, with the acceleration keys, so that it's easy. If you have a doubt, you press a couple of keys and you find what you need. This is extremely important, especially for teams like this, because the pace of innovation is unbelievable, I can tell you.
Do you ever just sit there and are like, holy smokes, I can't believe they used our platform to build this?
Well, we have about 5 million users, including the education. We celebrated 2 years ago the millionth commercial seat. And we have more than 300,000 companies all over the world, of any size, as I said, in 12 industries. And it is mesmerizing what our clients do. It is, for me, it is the best part of my job, to go around and be let in those labs and see what they do, and see those digital virtual twins on a screen, and then they take me to the next room and they see those things in action. I mean, like the hydraulic, the devices, the lifting devices that these guys have invented to replace the hydraulics, right? The inefficient hydraulics. You see them on the screen and they show, and the next thing I see is those things working on trucks, you know, on the platform. And also the accuracy. What is really surprising me all the time is the level of accuracy that they can achieve. Everything is in there, even the little screw. Believe it or not, because they want precision, they want to know everything. They want to know the weight in the minimal details. They want to have the bill of material. They want to know how many screws. So they do it all, and that's what it's designed for. And it's so refreshing to hear that it is used exactly the way it was supposed to be.
Now, with Rise, Toomas and Nolan, he makes a good point about weight and the different, really intricate, tiny parts that go into, decision making, right? How has that knowledge and depth of information available, helped you test out your first commercial product?
Yeah, definitely. You're completely right. We do model down to the very last detail. When we, and it's necessary in many cases. As you mentioned, we're competing with hydraulic cylinders, which are an extremely power dense technology, very compact, very small in size. So we're always looking to, get every little last quarter, half millimeter, smaller in size to meet the necessary load capacities with our technology. And then I will say we don't model everything because there's an extremely robust ecosystem out there now that allow downloadable SolidWorks files of every single type of screw. So we make full use of that as well, and it's great to be it's great that the platform is so ubiquitous that so many other companies and vendors, distributors are offering those models available for download, instant download, because it's just great to have them in the native SolidWorks files to be able to change anything about them.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Go ahead, GP, go.
Yeah, this is important. Is the power of the ecosystem, right? And they're right. They don't need to model. Can you imagine if you had to model to actually model every single screw? It's a huge waste of time. Thankfully, everything that you buy, probably you can also download the digital model in SolidWorks format. So they really focus on the value added that they do with their devices. And the other thing that is important for me, I noticed that, those applications are very, very sensitive from a safety point of view. If you fail, you can kill people. You lift tons of weight, okay? It's a very heavy industrial environment. So precision and reliability is extremely important. And you need technology to make sure to measure the safety factor, to do also, to test, to do fatigue analysis, to do the kinematic analysis, because those things are mission critical. If a platform fails, it is potentially catastrophic, And as for the weight, there are interesting anecdotes. We have companies that build, aerospace components, that build satellites. And if you make a mistake of a few grams, then the dynamics get screwed up and the satellite collides, they go off orbit and they cannot get the thrust where they should have. And they go down to the weight of the wire harness. So they, many of our customers model, as for instance, I model down to the detail of the electrical wiring, to the single individual Morset. because they need to know the weighted distribution to the ground, because in many industries are mission critical. So safety is extremely important.
Well, certainly the industries that Rise is currently serving with our first product, and then the hopes for new products to come out that are also using, the same technology. Nolan, how do those details, how important are they to your everyday job, and how have they helped support Rise as you've gone through this new product launch?
Yeah. I mean, it's the smallest details that make the biggest difference. We talk about attention to detail a lot. It's what really separates a okay design from a great design. Something I want to kind of dive into here real quick is the drawings feature on SolidWorks. It is, fully integrated in with the actual 3D model, references, and then there's a whole bunch of features that you can choose in terms of tolerancing and how you call out a specific dimension. And one of the things that some engineers forget that we always need to be thinking about is, can you actually make this, right? Because you can use the 3D platform to create a part that does exactly what you want, that is the farthest thing from manufacturable. So the drawing feature really helps you visualize, how this is going to happen, what is a realistic tolerance. And when you're thinking, or rather looking at, a thousandth or a half thousandth or a couple micron, it really helps you to like piece together in your mind, what is this? How is it going together? In terms of, and then the second part of that question you said was, how is it implied in our product? Could you repeat that?
Yeah, well, how does it support Rise moving forward, and how that the attention to detail has allowed you to, launch the joint product with Anthony Liftgates and some of our other things that we have cooking in the lab?
Yeah, sure. So what's great about SolidWorks is that you can have, we'll call them like references or like equation-driven models. So our system is going to visually look relatively similar, as we go from 4,000 pounds up to 50,000 pounds, obviously with like, some slight differences based on like packaging and constraints and weight. But we're actually able to, change around some numbers and get, what we call like a rough parent model of some larger actuator. And then from there, all that time is saved. We have dependencies on, the absolutely necessary dimensions. And then we're able to, slightly modify all that to fit the specific application. So we're able to use these like master models to scale the technology up and down on like a building block basis.
That's great. Well, GP, I'm going to transition just a little bit, because I also know that, at SolidWorks, you help companies commercialize their technology. How do you go about doing that? How do you help them assess what their options are and actually move from what Nolan and Toomas are talking about, concept and modeling, all the way to commercialization and even launching manufacturing?
Justin, what we do, we have a very large network of incubators. So what we do, we physically go there, visit there. We have a team dedicated to early adopters, okay, or early technologists and innovators. And most of the times, those companies are strong on the technical side, but are not introduced yet, for instance, to the world of financing, of venture capital, and also to the world of supply chain, the importance of creating a supply chain. So we support this company. What they do in an amazing way is they bring the idea, and that is the most important and valuable thing. Once you have the idea, it's very easy for us to encourage these innovators to move forward and to create the network for them to succeed. Most of the time is okay. First of all, to all entrepreneurs, we give free software. Okay, we have a program for startups where they can use anything in our portfolio for up to 1 year, completely free. And then we have a gradual introduction into, it can be renewed, but we then gradually introduce them into a more commercial alignment, pricing, when they can afford it. So this is one way to help them. The other one is to create business opportunities. For instance, we had an amazing client in Korea. They create precision parts for paper printing, and they wanted to enter the US market for plastic 3D printing. Okay, so we created connections with local distributors, with local technologists, with local educational institutions that were willing to test and introduce and showcase their products. And right now, they are very, very, very successful and also very, very grateful. We also like to showcase innovation in all our events. So when we talk about SolidWorks, we don't talk about or 3DEXPERIENCE Works. We don't talk about SolidWorks per se, but we talk about SolidWorks like we are doing today, through the prism and the viewpoint of our clients. And this allows them to speak to a much wider audience. And therefore, we have created a situation where, for instance, our reseller channel, more than 400 partners, they became distributors of their products. For instance, 3D printing. There are now 3D printing companies that we launched at World a few years back that right now are thriving. Some of them are public. I can mention a few. Markforged is one very, very successful company that we launched on the stage at 3DEXPERIENCE World. Another one is Nano Dimension, is a company that 3D prints PCB, printed circuit boards. Amazing, very innovative technology. We showcase them at World. It is a public company now with amazing and very innovative technology. RISE is another very, very bright example with their unique patent of the pulleys that I think is a genius type of intuition that they had. So we create networks. Networks are very important for companies for thrive. We provide technology, and in some cases we also provide mentorship, simple business mentorship, how to build a business plan, how to make a pitch, how to talk to an investor, and how to talk to a possible supplier.
Yep. That's great. Well, so what's next for SolidWorks and 3DEXPERIENCE?
Well, what is important now for us is to go into this, into the what is called the digital manufacturing age. So we have been focused on design for many, many years, right? And I think we did a decent job. But right now, SolidWorks is a language spoken in the world of design. But today, you do design for manufacturing, right? You have to do design in a context where simulation is used continuously, it's a continuous loop, because you need to optimize, you need to create sustainable products. So sustainability is extremely important. You have to optimize the material, the resources, the weights, right? So we want to expand. The next act for SolidWorks is to expand, to go into the digital manufacturing with a continuous digital continuity for design, through manufacturing, through simulation, in a continuous loop. Manufacturing is undergoing a big revolution because, first of all, there is a crisis in what used to be called the globalization, right? So we kind of delegated we let the manufacturing to happen in concentrated parts of the world, and we risked losing the manufacturing technology and knowledge. And right now we know how delicate and how dangerous is the type of setup. And there is this, and also it's very costly in terms of transportation, reliability, and so on. Right now, there is a big talk about circular economies, produce locally what we want to consume locally. Okay, so there is a renaissance of manufacturing, but of course there are scarce resources and also human resources. There is a big problem in employment today. Finding a qualified employee for a manufacturing company is not easy at all. Therefore, you have to optimize. Okay, and we live in an era where the supply chain can be easily disrupted. So you need to build resilience in your supply chain. This is part of what we want to achieve with the digital manufacturing, so that you can build, you can connect, you can better use the resources, whether they are physical resources like the machines that you have in your shop floor, or whether they are employees that work on those machines. You have to make sure that you use them very, very efficiently. And then you have to make sure that your supply chain is healthy, is available, and the status of any supply is on your fingertips every day. You need a dashboard to make sure that your supply is coming at the right time, just in time, in an era of supply chain disruption. This is our next act now.
Wow, that is ambitious and exciting and totally necessary.
Absolutely.
That's exciting. Well, Toomas, Nolan, same question for you. What's next for Rise? What's on the horizon?
Yeah. We're always thinking about the next steps and where we're going. GP, I really appreciate you saying we have a, not a small team right now, but we have probably, I'm thinking that because we have plans to grow, right? We're looking to double in size approximately over the next year. We're on the verge of winning, or we have just won about 3 government Air Force contracts, as well as making business relationships with a few key, manufacturing companies in the industry, where we're going to attack new markets. So we're working with Anthony Liftgates right now on a 4,000 pound force cylinder. The liftgate would be 5,500 pound load capacity. But, as we mentioned earlier, we're going all the way up in size and scaling the technology to 50,000 pounds and beyond. So we have multiple new projects, that are going to be kicking off over the next few months. I guess, that's very much, relating that to, the SolidWorks platform a bit. We're looking into PLM functionality, ERP functionality, and just building our supply chain as we go into manufacturing. So keeping those feedback loops really quick and fast, and it is going to be of utmost importance to us as we begin, our foray into manufacturing and putting these products out into the field.
Yeah,
that's really exciting. Go ahead, GP.
Very soon you will produce millions of those cylinders, and
Yes.
When you are at that point and you need some ERP manufacturing technology, give me a call. I give you a good discount.
Will do. Can we start the entrepreneurship program at the beginning again?
We can work that out. We love our entrepreneurs, so we are always available to help. Always.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, guys, I'm really thankful that you took the time out on a Friday afternoon to talk to me and walk through what's going on. It's really exciting to not just hear about the partnership, but how you continue to invest in each other on things. And I think that's really important. It's really neat, GP, to hear about what's on the horizon, and Toomas and Nolan, how we build a company around the stability of a platform like SolidWorks. So I really thanks for the opportunity to hear all that today, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Toomas, Nolan, Justin, it was fun to talk together.
Likewise. Well, you've been listening to the Rise Inside podcast. Until next time.
You have been listening to the Rise Inside podcast, presented by Rise Robotics. On behalf of our guest today and host Justin Starbird, thank you for listening. Please share your feedback on our LinkedIn page, linkedin.com/company/rise-robotics.